Hello and welcome back to a new tutorial. My name is Abdul Qadir, and in this tutorial we are going to continue creating an AI NPC. In one of my recent tutorials we have created Brian as an AI NPC which who walks from point A to point B, or more specifically who walks from wherever we put him to a target point. So in this case he walks from here to the target point specified for him. You can check my last tutorial by clicking on the top right card right now, and let's do a little recap. So in the last tutorial, we have downloaded the model of Brian and two animations from Mixamo. I have already explained that in the last tutorial, and we have created a Brian Master AI, Brian AI Controller, an enumeration for Brian, and the animation blueprint. The animation blueprint is just going from idle to walk and from walking to idle in a very simple state machine. Next thing we've done was Brian enumeration, which is we are going to work with this today as well. And let me first show you what was the result of the last tutorial. Yeah, so basically that was it. So without any further ado, let's get started. First things first, we have to go to Brian enumeration. And as you remember, we had walking enumerator, the walk on enumerator, and the description was just walk. Let's change it to walk from point A to point B so that descriptions would be more descriptive. And let's add two new enumerators. The first one would be roam and the second one would be follow. For the descriptions, for roaming in roaming to random locations, and for following, follow the player. So let's for a moment imagine that Brian is a civilian just roaming on the streets or roaming in the park, maybe speaking on the phone, or maybe he is an animal roaming in the forest. That would be a good example of roaming, but we are going to use Brian and pretend that he is an animal. For following, let's say you have a pet or a friend, an AI friend in a game, and you want him to follow you wherever you go. So that would be a good example for following. So after we've created the two new enumerators, let's save that and close the enumeration and directly go to Brian Master AI. As you remember, we have created the switch on Brian enumeration and the walk to function, and we didn't have roam and follow, but now we do. So that's good. Before we do anything, let's just change the walk variable. Let's change its name to AI state, and we are going to make it public. In the last tutorial it was not public, and I will show you right away what making it public does for us. So let's close the blueprint, and if you select Brian, and go to his details, you will see the AI state in here and the three functions that we created for that AI NPC. So for walking, he is going to walk to his target point. For roaming, he is going to roam around. And for following, he is just going to follow me. So let us keep this Brian as in his walk AI state, and let's jump in and create the other two events. So first things first, we are going to create a custom event and call it roam. And let's directly create the next event, also a custom event named follow. Next thing we want to do is to go to his enumerator, and from roaming we are going to call the roam function, and for follow we are going to call his follow function that we have just created. Let's make everything tidy and clean. That's good enough. Not so good. I really like to have my blueprints very clean and organized. And for the walkthrough that we have done in the last tutorial, let's comment that and make it walk from point A to point B. And let's start with roaming. So for roaming, what we want to do is to create the same function AI move to, but with a little bit of tweaks. So when someone roams, he is going to go from point A to point B, which is random, and then go again from point B to point C, and then go from point C to point D. So every time he is going to go from point A to a different point B. So let's go to pawn and reference it to self, which is the Brian Master AI, and the destination is going to be a random point in navigable radius. Once we've done that, we want to get the origin of point A, which is the actor location. And let's set the radius to say 500, and we are almost good to go. It wouldn't be that easy. So on success, we want to have a delay of, let's say, 2 seconds. So every time he walks from a point to another point, he is going to stop for 2 seconds, and then what we are going to do is to call the roaming function again. So what this does is calling this function. So it calls it, and then it goes to AI move to again, and the destination would be the new location of the actor, and then it will choose a new point to go to as a destination, and on success he will wait for 2 seconds and then go to another point, and this is how it works. Let's compile and save that, and once we save that, close it, and let's put in the level a new Brian, and instead of having him as walk in the AI state, let's make him roam, and we don't have to choose a target because roaming doesn't require any target points. So let's directly play and check what will happen. So the first Brian is going to his target point, and the second Brian is roaming around. So this is the logic of creating, let's say, an animal or anything that roams from fish inside a fish tank to wolves roaming in the forest, to deers roaming in the forest, to civilians roaming anywhere in a level. So the third function that we are going to create, let's go back to Brian AI, Master AI, and let's comment the roam to random locations. And for following, we are going to also create AI move to, and the pawn is also self, but in following he is going to have a target actor, and the target actor would be get player character. Once we have this set, we can do the same thing as here. So if he reaches us, so on success, if he reaches us, we are going to have a delay of, let's say, 0.5 seconds, and then he is going to follow again. Let's comment that and say follow player, compile and save, and let's put a new Brian in here. There is a lot of Brians right now, and for this Brian we are going to check the AI state, make sure that it's follow, and we don't need a target point because we are the target in here. Let's play and see how it's working. So one of that Brian is roaming, that Brian is walking to his target point, and this Brian is following me. And once he reaches, he will have a delay of 0.5 seconds and then continue following me, which is the logic for pets or friends that we have inside the game. So this is it for this tutorial. If you find it useful, consider subscribing, commenting, liking, and sharing. This was Abdul Qadir, and have a good evening.